The great hall of the O'Neill platform was quiet. The air still felt charged from the recent conflict, but now it was filled with a tense, heavy silence. On one side of the long, polished table sat the delegation from the Galactic Empire. Admiral Kaver was at their head, but he was not the highest ranking. Beside him sat an imperial viceroy, a stern woman with silver markings on her cheeks, sent from the core worlds in frantic haste. They wore robes of state, but the robes seemed to hang on them like heavy chains. Their pride was a broken thing. On the other side sat the humans. Era was at the center, with Captain Min to her right, and the engineer Tay to her left. They wore simple, clean clothes. They looked like they were about to discuss a business contract, not the fate of two civilizations. The viceroy spoke first, her voice tight. The purest conclave acted without the emperor's consent. Their fleet was renegade. The empire repudiates their actions. It was a necessary lie, and everyone in the room knew it. Era nodded slowly. We understand that factions exist. We are glad the sensible elements of the empire are now in dialogue. She didn't smile. It was not a moment for smiles. But the event changes things. You came to offer us a place in your system. That system just tried to murder us because we were different. We cannot join that. The viceroy stiffened. Is that a declaration of hostility? No, Captain Min said, his voice calm but firm. It's a statement of fact. Your galactic standard isn't just technology. It's a mindset. It sees difference as a flaw. Our difference almost got us killed. So we need a new agreement. One not based on you being teachers and us being students. Era placed a small data crystal on the table. It glowed with a soft, white light. We propose a new framework. We call it the Adaptive Accord. The viceroy looked at the crystal with suspicion. What are its terms? First, Era said, holding up a finger. No assimilation. Humanity will not become a client species of the Empire. We will be allies, partners, or we will be neighbors who leave each other alone. But we will not be subjects. A murmur went through the Imperial delegation. This was unheard of. Second, Era held up another finger. A true two-way technology and cultural exchange. Not a gift from you to us. A trade. She nodded to Taydot. The engineer leaned forward, his usual cheerfulness replaced by a focused intensity. You have things we can only dream of. Stability, scale. 10,000 years of galactic history, engineering, art. Your ability to build a city that lasts for millennia. It's beautiful. We want to learn that. We want your knowledge of the galaxy, your maps, your peaceful sciences. He paused. In return, we offer you our way of thinking, our adaptive sciences, our recursive logic systems, our chaos theory models, not to replace your way, but to complement it, to give you tools for problems your perfect solutions can't solve. Admiral Kaver spoke for the first time, his voice rough. You would give us the weapons you used against us? Min answered. They weren't weapons, Admiral. Not in the way you think. They were tools. A communication array, a terraforming stabilizer, a medical scanner. You just happened to be standing where we pointed them. We'll share the principles. What you build with them is up to you. And the military? The viceroy pressed, her eyes sharp. Third, Era said, holding up a third finger. A mutual defense pact. But not a combined fleet. A complementary one. She looked at Min. Your strength is in holding the line, Min said, addressing Kaver directly. Big ships, big shields, overwhelming force. You're the anvil. Our strength is in being unpredictable, in adaptation, in finding the one weak point in a system. We're the hammer, or the screwdriver, or the lubricant. He shrugged. Separately, We have weaknesses. Together, we'd be a nightmare for anyone to fight. The room was silent as the Imperials processed this. It was a complete overturning of the universe's order. They were not being asked to surrender. They were being asked to evolve. Later, after the formal discussions had ended, a smaller, more informal gathering took place in an observation lounge. Captain Min was there with a young Imperial tactical officer who had been on the bridge of the Light of Xylos during the war game. The officer, named Colin, was still struggling with what he had seen. "Your ships," Kai Len said, staring out at the stars. "They move. Wrong. There is no pattern." Min chuckled softly. He pulled out a small tablet and called up a video. It showed a grassy field with two teams of large humans in a violent, scrambling clash. They ran, they tackled, they passed a strange oval ball. "This is a game we play. It's called rugby." Kalen watched, confused, as the players collided and surged in a seemingly chaotic mess. "What are the rules?" "The rules are simple," Min said. "Move the ball to the other end of the field. You can't throw it forward, only backward or to the side. That's about it? That is all? Where is the formation? The strategy?" "The strategy emerges," Min said, pointing as the mass of players suddenly pivoted. A hole opened, and a man sprinted through it. Every single clash changes the possibilities. The players have to read the game, adapt every second. It looks like chaos, but it's a chaos with a purpose. That's us. He looked from the screen to Kalen's bewildered face. "You were playing chess against us with perfect, beautiful pieces. We were playing rugby with rocks and sticks. We were just playing a different game." On the other side of the station, Admiral Caver stood on an observation deck. Below, in a vast docking bay, he could see a joint engineering project. A damaged Imperial frigate was being repaired. But not just repaired. Imperial engineers in sleek suits worked on the primary hull, applying standardized plating. Right beside them, human engineers in more utilitarian gear were installing a secondary, organic-looking system along the ship's spine, an adaptive sensor web based on human designs. He watched a human engineer. A woman named Laya demonstrate a tool to a fascinated Imperial counterpart. It was a welding torch, but the beam it emitted was unstable, flickering. "See," Laya was saying, her voice carried by the open comms channel to the observation deck. "It's a janky waveform. It doesn't melt the metal evenly. It kind of vibrates it into bonding with the sublayer. It creates a stronger seam, but you have to kind of feel the resonance. It's a bit of an art." The Imperial engineer watched, then tried it. His first attempt was clumsy, the weld blobby and uneven. Laya laughed, not unkindly. "You're thinking about it too hard. Don't fight the jiggle. Go with it." Caver watched the Imperial engineer try again. This time, he let the tool's natural instability guide his hand. The weld that resulted was strong and clean, though slightly wobbly in appearance. It was not a perfect Imperial weld. It was something new. The Imperial engineer looked at his handiwork, and a slow, genuine smile spread across his face. He had learned something that wasn't in the manual. Aira walked up beside Keever, following his gaze. "The jank solution," she said softly. "I beg your pardon?" "That's what we call it. The elegant, effective fix that works perfectly, but looks a little off, a little homemade. It's our favorite kind of solution." Admiral Caver looked down at the bay. He saw his people, the guardians of 10,000 years of perfect order, eagerly learning from these chaotic, brilliant children about the beauty of a slightly ugly weld. He saw the human Laya pat the Imperial engineer on the back of his suit. He had come to this system expecting to bring light to a dark corner of the galaxy. Instead, The humans had turned on a light so strange and bright, it had shown him the limits of his own ancient sun. The Empire had not been defeated. It had been given homework. He turned to Era. There was no anger left in him, only a weary, honest curiosity. What do we do now? Era looked at the busy scene below, a small, real smile finally touching her lips. Now, she said, we see what we can build together. With your perfect scroll and our rewritable paper. A report was sent to the Imperial Senate that night. It was written by the Viceroy, but the final line was suggested by Admiral Caver. It read, "Humanity has not surpassed the galactic standard. They have rendered it obsolete. Recommend we begin remedial studies immediately." The report from Admiral Caver did not have the intended effect. On the core worlds of the Galactic Empire, within the vaulted chambers of the purest conclave, it was not read as a warning to be cautious. It was read as a confession of failure and a blueprint for action. The head of the conclave, a severe elder named Vec, viewed the data from the wargame not with alarm, but with cold fury. The sight of Imperial might being undone by tricks and adaptive sand was an insult to 10,000 years of order. Admiral Caver has been culturally contaminated, Vec declared to the inner circle. He speaks of their perverse ingenuity as if it is a strength. It is a weakness of spirit. They are chaos. We are order. Chaos must be scorched away before it spreads. A secret fleet was assembled, bypassing the official Imperial military channels, still loyal to the Emperor's more measured approach. It was a purist armada, led by Mevis's protege, Commander Viril. Their ships were of an older, more brutal design, less about elegant shields and more about raw firepower. Their orders were simple: a decapitation strike. Jump to the Sol system, destroy the human orbital command centers, glass their primary military installations, and leave their world leaderless and broken. The shock would be so total that their adaptive tricks would have nothing to organize around. It was the Empire's ancient solution to pests: burn the nest. On the human orbital facility known as Watchtower, a young intelligence analyst named Yuna was drinking cold coffee. Her job was to monitor the thousands of civilian and scientific sensor feeds that peppered the solar system, looking for patterns in the noise. Most days, it was boring. Today, a cluster of anomalies near the Oort cloud fringe made her sit up straight. Gravimetric ripples, but all wrong. They were too sharp, too deliberate, and they were moving in at an aggressive, direct angle. Not the cautious approach of the Imperial diplomatic ship Dot. She flagged it and sent it to the Tactical Coordination AI, a system overseen by a man named June. June lived in a world of data streams. He got Yuna's alert and merged it with other feeds. Subtle energy bleed in a frequency the Imperials used for tight beam combs, a pattern of cosmic dust displacement that matched mass-heavy vessels. The picture formed in seconds. This isn't a visit, June said over a direct line to Captain Min and Diplomat Era. This is an attack vector. A fleet trying to be sneaky. They're coming in fast, on a direct line for Earth and the main orbital hubs. Era's face was grim on the screen. Admiral Caver? Unlikely, Min said, his relaxed demeanor gone, replaced by a sharp focus. This smells different, reckless. They're not here to test us this time. They had minutes, not hours. The purest fleet dropped from its makeshift jump at the edge of the inner system, their weapons already powering up. On the bridge of his flagship, Commander Viril felt a surge of righteous power. He saw the messy, bright human stations against the blue of Earth. They looked fragile. He gave the order. All vessels, open fire on primary targets. Wipe them from the sky. At that moment, on Watchtower, June initiated a protocol. It had no dramatic name. In the logs, it was called background reallocation. Across the solar system, on hundreds of seemingly inert science platforms, Mining rigs and communication buoys, devices hummed to life. They were not weapons. They were reality anchors. A pet project of a physicist who had wondered if you could locally tune the constants of physics, just a little, to aid certain experiments. What they did was simple. They created a bubble of enforced, hyperstable physical laws around the Sol system. It was like suddenly trying to swim in thick syrup. On the purest fleet, alarms screamed. Commander Virel was thrown forward as his ship shuddered. Report. Gravitational shear. Our jump drives are offline. They're being suppressed by an external field. Energy levels are dropping. Reactor output is down 40%. Shield coherence is failing. They're fluctuating. The Imperial ships, whose technology relied on the predictable, universal constants of the galactic standard, were suddenly trying to operate in a universe that had subtly changed its rules. Their systems, perfect and stable, began to fail because the ground beneath them had shifted. The human ships, meanwhile, slid out of their docks. Their reactors, which thrived on chaos and differentials, barely hiccuped. Their adaptive hulls registered the new environment and began to compensate. Their weapons, many of them kinetic or projectile-based, were largely unaffected by the change in energy physics. Commander Virel saw them coming on his viewer. The same ugly, mismatched ships from the simulation. They did not form a battle line. They moved like a shoal of fish, swift and fluid. They did not fire their main weapons first dot instead. They fired data. Concentrated beams of invasive code, targeting not the heavily fortified mainframes of the Imperial ships, but the ancient, simple subsystems no one ever thought to harden environmental control protocols. Cargo bay door sequences, the public address network. Systems so old and reliable, they were part of the ship's architectural code, never updated because they never failed. On the flagship, Virel heard a strange sound. The ship-wide intercom crackled, and a calm human voice, June's, filled the corridors. Attention, Imperial vessel. Your atmospheric filters are now running in reverse. Please brace for particulate redistribution. Across the fleet, lights flickered. Doors irrationally opened and shut. Life support in non-critical areas switched to standby. It was not damaging. It was disorienting, humiliating, and it caused cascading system errors as the ship's AIs tried to understand the nonsense commands. Return fire. Destroy them. Virel screamed. The purest ships tried. Plasma bolts, weakened and slow in the thickened space, lumbered toward the human vessels. The human ships didn't even use their flickering shields. They moved with insect-like agility, simply sliding out of the way. They closed the distance. Then they used their physical tools. Grappling cables made of smart matter shot out, latching onto the Imperial hulls. Nanite clouds, similar to the medical flora, swarmed over weapon emplacements, not destroying them, but reprogramming their safety locks and cooling systems to overheat. It was less an attack and more of a hijacking. Admiral Caver, on the light of Xylos, had detected the purest jump. Horrified, he had rushed his loyalist ships forward, hoping to intervene to stop the catastrophe. He arrived just in time to see the climax. The human ships, small and agile, were swarming over the purest flagship like mites on a great disabled beast. Its mighty engines were dark. Its weapons were silent. A final, elegant human beam played over its bridge module. Not a laser, but a powerful electromagnetic pulse tuned to a specific frequency. The flagship systems, already confused, went completely quiet. Then, from the human carrier, a swarm of heavy engineering drones emerged. They latched onto the proud, scarred hull of the Imperial flagship. With gentle, precise tractor beams, they began to tow the gargantuan warship toward a parking orbit. It was the most peaceful, most insulting surrender imaginable. Viral's furious face appeared on Kaver's screen, spitting and demanding he open fire. Kaver ignored him. He opened a channel to the humans. Era's face appeared. She looked tired. "Admiral," she said, "I assume this was not your idea." "It was not," Kaver said, his voice hollow with defeat. He gestured to the viewer, where his mighty Imperial warship was being towed like a broken-down hovercar. "How? Their shields? Their weapons? How did you do this?" Era sighed. "You showed us your strength, Admiral. Your perfect, unbreakable vase. We just gave the universe a gentle shake." She leaned closer to the screen. "You spent 10,000 years perfecting the scroll, writing the rules of physics in beautiful, unchangeable ink. We spent 500 learning how to rewrite the paper." On the screen behind her, Kyver could see the purest flagship, once a symbol of invincible order, now a silent, captive hulk against the stars. The message was clearer than any plasma blast. The Empire had come to teach the amateurs. They had ended up as the lesson. The Admiral's orders were clear, but they sat in his stomach like a stone. The purest conclave's directive was not a request. It was a command. They saw humanity's chaotic technology not as a curiosity, but as a disease. A disease needed to be stress-tested, its weaknesses found, before it could be safely eradicated. The words existential cultural contaminant echoed in his mind. He had seen no contamination. He had only seen a different way of thinking. But he was a soldier of the Empire. He requested a secure channel with the human diplomat, Era. Her face appeared on the screen, calm as ever. "Admiral Kyver," she said. "How can we assist you?" "Diplomat Era," he began, his voice formal. "The first steps of our exchange have been enlightening. My military commanders, however, believe that true understanding between civilizations includes an understanding of defensive capabilities. To avoid future miscalculations, they propose a controlled exercise, a simulated fleet engagement. No live weapons, of course. A war game." He expected hesitation or a request for time to consult. Era simply glanced to the side, where presumably Captain Min was standing off screen. She looked back and nodded. "A war game. An excellent idea. Captain Min agrees. It will be a valuable learning experience for both of us." Her easy agreement unsettled him further. "We propose a standard fleet confrontation scenario. One Imperial battle group against a comparable human force. The parameters will be set by neutral simulation software." "We have no such software," Era said, a faint smile on her lips. "But we are happy to use yours. We trust it will be fair." The stage was set in the empty space beyond Neptune's orbit. The Imperial simulation drones deployed, creating a vast holographic battlefield. From the light of Xylos, Kaver watched his fleet appear on the main viewer. It was a beautiful sight. A central command dreadnought, the Solar Lance, flanked by 4 heavy cruisers and a screen of 12 agile frigates. Their ships were polished, their formations precise. Shields glowed with a steady blue aura. Plasma lances hummed with contained power. This was the galactic standard in martial form. Overwhelming, disciplined, and powerful. The human fleet emerged from the simulation haze. Admiral Kaver leaned forward. What he saw seemed almost laughable. A handful of vessels, maybe 8 in total. They were of mismatched sizes and shapes, lacking the elegant symmetry of Imperial design. Their hulls were a dull, non-reflective gray. He saw no grand shield domes, only occasional patches of shimmering energy that flickered and moved. They looked like a collection of cargo haulers that had been hastily armed. "This is their force?" muttered his tactical officer, her skin flickering with amusement. "They are fielding tugs?" Captain Min's face appeared on a comms window. He looked relaxed. "Admiral, our ships are linked and ready. We're calling this exercise First Contact Football. Don't ask about the name. It's a human thing. We are ready, Captain, Kiva replied, his tone grave. Begin the simulation. The Imperial fleet moved first. It was a classic hammer and anvil maneuver. The heavy cruisers formed a line, advancing with shields interlocked, a moving wall of energy. The frigates split into two wings, curving around to strike the human flanks. The dreadnought held position, its main lance charging, a weapon designed to crack planetary defenses. Human vessels are not forming up, the sensor officer reported, confusion in his voice. They are. Scattering. On the screen, the human ships did not move to meet the attack. They simply drifted apart, like leaves on a pond. Then they began to fade. Not with a cloak, but by becoming indistinct, their outlines blurring into the background radiation and sensor noise of space itself. What is that? Kaver demanded. Some form of reactive camouflage. They are mimicking local sensor conditions. They are becoming very hard to lock onto. The Imperial wing of frigates, now with no clear target, slowed their charge. Their targeting computers struggled to find a firm solution. Then, from the sensor haze, a human ship, one of the mid-sized ones, solidified for just a second. It fired, not a beam of plasma, not a bolt of coherent light. It was a simple, solid projectile. A tungsten rod, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. It was a crude brute force weapon the Empire had abandoned millennia ago. The rod struck the lead Imperial frigate. The simulation calculated the impact. Energy shields were designed to dissipate heat and diffuse particle beams. They struggled with an inert, hypervelocity mass. The shield flared white, strained, and failed. The rod tore through the frigate's hull in the simulation, marking it as destroyed. A murmur of shock went through the light of Xylo's bridge. All vessels. Kaver barked. Switch to kinetic intercept point defense. Target those projectiles. The human ships faded again. They fired from different points, never staying visible for more than a second. The Imperial fleet's point defense lasers tracked and vaporized many of the incoming rods. But the humans were not just firing rods. Small pods launched from their ships, exploding into clouds of tiny, intelligent munitions. These nano-missiles swarmed the Imperial ships, not trying to penetrate shields, but attaching to weapon ports, sensor arrays, and engine nozzles. In the simulation, they began to report system degradation, not from damage, but from countless clogging intrusions. They are not trying to destroy us. The science officer cried. They are trying to annoy us to death. The Imperial dreadnought fired its main lance. A searing beam of purple plasma, capable of vaporizing a small moon, lanced across the void. It struck a human cruiser that had been too slow to fade. On the bridge, they watched. The human ship's shield, a patchwork of moving energy, flared violently. It buckled in one section, and the beam seared into the hull. The ship was marked as heavily damaged, but it did not explode. Instead, the simulation data stream showed something impossible. The ship's internal systems were rerouting power. The composition of its hull around the breach was actively changing, the molecular structure reforming into a denser, heat-resistant configuration based on the specific energy signature of the Imperial plasma. The ship, badly hurt, was literally learning how to better survive the attack while it was happening. Captain Min's voice came back over the comms. Calm. Nice shot, Admiral. That one stung. The exercise descended into chaos. The rigid, beautiful Imperial formations broke apart as they tried to chase ghosts. The human ships moved in short, unpredictable jumps, their engines flaring in bizarre patterns. They used the nanoclouds as a screen. They fired kinetic rods from point-blank range. One human frigate, marked as nearly disabled, suddenly vented a cloud of coolant that froze instantly in the vacuum, creating a glittering, sensor-scattering field that blinded an entire Imperial cruiser group. Finally, the simulation's end condition was met. The software declared the engagement over. The results flashed on the screen. Imperial fleet, 87% simulated losses. Command Dreadnought Solar Lance, destroyed. Human fleet, 42% simulated losses. All remaining vessels, operational, various damage states. Silence engulfed the bridge of the light of Xylos. The beautiful, powerful fleet was gone, defeated not by a superior force, but by a swarm of clever, adaptive pests. The humans had not fought a space battle. They had conducted a form of chaotic engineering in a combat environment. Admiral Kaver's Kun screen activated. It was Captain Min. He wasn't smiling, but his eyes held a look of professional assessment. Good exercise, Admiral. Your crews are very disciplined. Your weapons have tremendous yield. He paused. But you fight like you're reading from a manual. You kept turning the page even when the story changed. Kaver found his voice. It was hoarse. Your technology. It has no honor. It is deception and trickery. Min tilted his head. Is it trickery to use a rock when your enemy expects a knife? We saw what you had. We used what would work. Is that not the point of war? To win? He ended the transmission. Alone in his quarters later, Kaver prepared his report to the purist conclave. He knew what they wanted to hear, that humanity was weak, that they could be broken. He typed the truth instead. Assessment complete. Human military capability is not inferior. It is asymmetrical. They do not contest strength with strength. They dissolve it. Their technology is not more powerful, but it is infinitely more perverse. They treat warfare as a fluid design problem with infinite variables. They are not warriors. They are engineers of conflict. A conventional victory, as defined by the standard, is likely impossible. They will always change the rules. He sent the message, feeling he had just signed a death warrant, not for humanity, but for the Empire's ancient way of thinking. He stared at the stars, now seeing not orderly points of light, but a chaotic, human-infested darkness. The silence in the Admiral's quarters on the light of Xylos was heavy. Admiral Kaver stared at the data stream from the human station, the schematics of their quantum array still glowing on his screen. His science officer, her skin a muted troubled gray, stood waiting. It is a trick, Kaver said finally, his voice low. A parlor trick. They must have had a hidden relay. Instantaneous communication violates causality. It is impossible. The scans show no hidden relays, Admiral, the science officer replied. The energy signature is unique. It matches their theoretical models, which are disturbingly elegant. They were not lying. It is foundational to them. Kaver turned from the screen. The human's calm face, Era, floated in his memory. There had been no arrogance in her presentation. That was the most disturbing part. She had shown him a universe-altering technology, as if it were a curious stone she'd found. He had come to offer them a ladder from a pit, only to find them already standing on the rim, looking down at him with polite interest. We must understand their baseline, he decided. We assumed a pre-standard civilization. That assumption was wrong. We need a full assessment. Request permission for cultural and scientific exchange teams. We will tour their facilities. We will see the cracks in this pile of sand they pretend is a foundation. The request was sent. The human response from the diplomat Era was swift and agreeable. We would be honored to host your teams, she said. Please send your experts. We have nothing to hide. The Imperial teams were assembled. Engineers, physicists, biologists, and military assessors. They were sent down to Earth and to key orbital facilities. Their human guide was the cheerful engineer from the meeting, Tay. He met them at a landing field with a wide smile and a casual wave. "Welcome. So glad you could come." "We'll start with the boring stuff first," Tay said, leading a group of Imperial engineers to a power generation facility. It was not on Earth, but on a station orbiting Mercury. The Imperial head engineer, a meticulous being named Virl, looked around. He expected to see the clean, contained arcs of zero-point energy taps, the Empire's perfect and stable power source. Instead, he saw a chaotic web of machinery. A central sphere pulsed with the familiar light of fusion, but it was fed by streams of what looked like liquid silver that shifted in the air. Other conduits hummed with a strange, vacuum-like silence. "This is our main reactor for this sector," Tay explained, patting a console. "We call it a salad bar reactor. A little bit of everything." Voil's facial tendrils twitched in confusion. Salad? Yeah. We tap the fusion core for baseline. But we also siphon vacuum energy fluctuations here. Tay pointed to a shimmering field. "And this," he gestured to the liquid metal streams, "is programmable matter. It restructures itself to optimize energy capture from any local source solar radiation, thermal differentials, even background cosmic rays. Efficiency isn't always pretty." Virl stared. Zero-point cells were sealed, perfect, and stable. You used one until its energy was depleted, then you recycled it. This human reactor was a living, changing thing. It was messy. It was inelegant. His scanner showed its output fluctuating, but always within required parameters. It was not a machine. It was a ecosystem. "What is your redundancy?" Virl asked. "If one system fails?" Tay grinned. "That's the best part. If the fusion core hiccups, the programmable matter compensates by ramping up vacuum harvest. If the magnetic containment here wobbles," he tapped another panel, "the whole lattice reconfigures to shunt the plasma safely. It's not redundant. It's adaptive. It doesn't have failure points. It has learning opportunities." Meanwhile, in a biomedical lab on Earth, Imperial biologists were in a state of quiet shock. They had brought examples of the Empire's medical prowess, gene stabilizers that could cure hereditary diseases, and nano-repair swarms that could heal a wound in minutes. The lead human doctor, a woman named Yuna, examined them with polite curiosity. "Very precise," she said. "Very targeted." She then showed them a human medical suite. There were no stabilizers. Instead, there were cultures of what looked like ordinary cells. "These are programmable stem cells," Yuna explained. "We introduce them to the patient, and we give them a blueprint of healthy tissue. They just get to work building it. Need a new liver? They'll build one. New bone? No problem." One of the Imperial biologists, holding a sleek gene stabilizer, felt his tool suddenly seem crude. "And disease? Pathogens?" Yuna led them to another station. "We don't fight germs one by one. That's a never-ending war." She showed them a microscope image. Trillions of tiny, shimmering particles moved around a vicious-looking viral cell. "These are symbiotic nanoflora. They live in the bloodstream. When a new pathogen appears, they sample it, communicate with each other, and collectively design a counteragent in real time. The body's defense system evolves with the threat. You don't get sick twice from the same thing." The Imperial biologist felt dizzy. The Empire's medicine was a brilliant, specific sword. Human medicine was a shape-shifting shield that became stronger every time it was hit. The most profound discomfort was reserved for the computer scientists. They were taken to a data hub, a cool, silent room. The Empire used crystalline logic cores perfect, three-dimensional lattice where data flowed along set pathways with beautiful precision. The human technician, a young man named June, greeted them. "Our stuff is kind of squishy," he said apologetically. He showed them the core. It was not a crystal. It was a dark, gel-like substance in a tank, threaded with faint pulses of light. "It's a neuromorphic biosilicon hybrid," June said. "It doesn't just compute. It dreams. It runs probability matrices. Sometimes, when we give it a problem, it doesn't calculate the answer. It guesses. And it's almost always right." An imperial scientist objected. "Guessing is not logic. It is failure." June shook his head. "Not guessing like throwing a dart. Guessing like recognizing a pattern from a trillion possibilities all at once. Your logic cores are like a perfect, straight highway from point A to point B. Ours is like a million birds taking off at once. One of them finds the destination, and the rest learn the path instantly." He called up a complex astronavigation problem on a screen. The Empire's crystal core, linked remotely, began its methodical calculations. The human gel core pulsed. An answer appeared on the human screen in a fraction of the time. It was the same answer the crystal core was still working towards. The Imperial scientist stared. His technology was a masterpiece of order. This was a masterpiece of chaos. It was brilliant and horrifying. At the end of the tour, the teams gathered in a debriefing room with Tay. The humans served a bitter, dark liquid called coffee. The Imperials were silent, their confidence shattered. Vo RL, the engineer, spoke first, his voice tired. "Your technology has no philosophy. It has no unity. It is a collection of clever tricks." Tay sipped his coffee, his smile never fading. He picked up a glass paperweight from the table, a beautiful, solid cube. "Your tech is like this," he said, holding up the perfect cube. "Strong, clear, beautiful. You know exactly what it is and what it can do." He put the cube down and then swept his hand through a bowl of fine, white sand on the desk. He let it pour through his fingers. "Our tech is like this. It's just a pile of sand. Not very impressive. But," he said, his eyes twinkling, "you can build that perfect cube out of sand. You can also build a wall, or a road, or a filter for water. The sand can become anything. It's just less tidy." He looked at the stunned faces of the Imperial experts. "You spent 10,000 years perfecting the cube. We spent 500 years falling in love with the sand." The reports that flooded back to Admiral Caver were not of a backward species. They were of a terrifyingly agile one. Their power was not greater, but it was unpredictable. Their science was not more advanced in a straight line, but it branched in every direction at once. They had not built a castle. They had grown a jungle. That night, a secret priority message arrived from the Imperial High Command, bypassing normal channels. It was marked with the seal of the Purist Conclave, the most traditionalist and powerful faction in the Empire. The message was short. "Admiral Caver. Assessment confirms anomaly. Humanity's adaptive paradigm is an existential cultural contaminant. It cannot be integrated. It must be neutralized before it infects the standard. You are ordered to proceed to Phase 3, capability assessment. Forcefully determine their breaking point. The future of the Empire depends on it." Caver read the message, then looked out at the human station, a messy, bright collection of modules against the dark. He thought of the sand. He had a deep, cold feeling that the Empire was about to try and hold water in a perfect, unbreakable vase. The void near Jupiter was never truly empty. It was a river of radiation and dust, of silent rocks and deep, endless cold. But today, it held something new. The Imperial cruiser light of Xylos hung in the space near Ganymede, a sleek dagger of polished biometal and gentle blue energy lines. It was a picture of calm authority. On its bridge, Admiral Caver watched the blue-green marble of the human homeworld on a screen. His 4 eyes, too large and dark, too smaller, and set near his temples, reflected the image with quiet satisfaction. This was a moment he knew well. First contact with a pre-standard civilization was a delicate art, and he was a master artist. The script was ancient and proven. Show them the glory of the Galactic Empire. Reveal the technology that seemed like magic. Watch the awe dawn on their faces. Then guide them gently into the fold. They would be so grateful for the gift of the Galactic Standard. The planet's networks are buzzing. Admiral, said his science officer, a slender being whose skin shifted colors with her mood, currently a calm blue. They detected our arrival 17 of their minutes ago. Their transmissions are chaotic. Many voices. Primitive consensus building, Kyver said, his voice a soft rumble. It is always the same. They will send a delegation. They will be nervous. They will try to impress us with their greatest achievements, which to us will seem like toys. He adjusted the ceremonial sash across his chest. Open the standard hailing frequencies. Send the first contact package, the one with the simple mathematics and the peaceful greetings. On Earth, the detection had not caused panic. It had triggered Protocol Pandora. In a secure orbital facility, a team assembled not from a single world government, but from a fluid alliance of nations in the private megacorp Pandora Astro Engineering. The lead diplomat was a woman named Era. She had a calm face and eyes that missed nothing. By her side was the military liaison, Captain Min. He looked relaxed, almost bored, but his focus was absolute. Fixed on the data streaming across his tablet. They've sent the welcome packet, a young technician named Laya said. It's very clean. Very formal. Textbook. Era nodded. Send our response. Invitation to a neutral venue. The O'Neill platform at Lagrange Point 2. They'll expect a show of force, Min said, not looking up. Polished ships, big guns. Should we give them the 7th Fleet's parade formation? No, Era said. Send the Curiosity. And the Tinker. Make it look modest. Admiral Caver accepted the coordinates. He was pleased. The choice of a simple platform, not a warship, suggested a cautious, perhaps timid species. He took a shuttle with an honor guard of 6 Imperial soldiers in gleaming, powered armor, their plasma rifles held at perfect, respectful angles. They landed in the designated bay of the human station. The air was cold and smelled of metal and ozone. The humans were waiting. Era wore a simple dark suit. Min stood beside her in an unadorned uniform. Behind them were a few aides and a silent, observant engineer named Tay. There were no soldiers, no impressive guards. The Imperial Party was a spectacle of light and discipline. Caver stepped forward, his robes shimmering. I am Admiral Caver of the Galactic Empire. In the name of the Eternal Emperor, I bring you greetings and the promise of a new dawn among the stars. His translator unit rendered his words into smooth. Perfect English. Era offered a small, polite bow. Welcome, Admiral. I am Era, representing the people of Earth. This is Captain Min. We are honored by your visit. The formalities proceeded. They moved to a meeting room. Caver initiated the ritual. A hologram sprang from a projector on his wrist. It showed the magnificent spiral of the galaxy, with thousands of stars glowing. For 10,000 years, the Galactic Empire has been the guardian of civilization. We have brought peace, knowledge, and a common standard to hundreds of species. The hologram zoomed in, showing sleek starships, vast cities, and advanced medical pods. We offer you this future. The Galactic Standard, a unified framework of technology, faster than light travel, energy systems, and laws that will lift you from your cradle. He paused, letting the images sink in. The humans watched. Era's expression was politely interested. Min was looking at his tablet. Tay was studying the hologram projector itself, his head tilted. Of course, Kaver continued, his tone turning gently serious. The galaxy is not without dangers. A species must be able to protect its place. He gestured. One of his guards stepped forward. With a hum and a crackle of energy, a weapon on his arm deployed, projecting a small, contained ball of superheated plasma that hovered in the air, casting a purple light on the human faces. This is a standard-issue plasma sidearm. Its power can vaporize a ton of solid steel. The defensive shields on our smallest ships can withstand a barrage of these for a full cycle. He let the plasma ball dissipate. This is the level of safety and power the standard provides. The room was quiet. Kaver waited for the fear, the awe, the eager questions. Era leaned forward slightly. Thank you for the demonstration, Admiral. It is very impressive. Her voice was calm, devoid of the tremor Kaver expected. Your galactic standard is a remarkable achievement of stability and unity. Min finally looked up from his tablet. The energy yield-to-weight ratio on that sidearm is notable. The heat dissipation must be fantastic. Kaver blinked. The human wasn't marveling at the power. He was critiquing the engineering. Before we discussed terms of integration, Era continued, as if they were discussing a trade agreement for agricultural products. We believe cultural exchange should flow both ways. The Empire has shown us its strength. Perhaps we could show you one of our foundational sciences. Not a weapon, she added with a small smile. Something we consider fundamental to our understanding of the universe. Kaver was thrown. This was not in the script. Foundational science? They would likely show him a primitive fission reactor or a theory of gravity he learned as a child. It would be a chance to be magnanimous. We would be delighted, he said, recovering his diplomatic tone. Era nodded to Tay. The engineer, who had been so quiet, tapped a code into a small device on his wrist. A section of the room's wall became a transparent screen. It showed a schematic of the solar system, with lines of connection between planets, stations, and far-flung probes. For us, Tay began, his voice cheerful. One of the biggest puzzles was talking to each other across the big distances. Light speed lag. A message to Mars could take minutes. To the outer system, hours. It made real conversation, or command and control, very slow. On the schematic, a pulse of light left Earth for a probe near Pluto. A counter showed the time. Over 4 hours. So, Tay said, we had to stop thinking about sending a message and start thinking about sharing a state. The schematic changed. It now showed 2 points, labeled A and B. A subatomic particle's property. Its spin was shown at point A instantly. Without any travel, the connected particle at point B mirrored the spin. Quantum entanglement, Tay said. We figured out how to scale it up, make it stable, and encode information into it. We call them qubits. The solar system schematic lit up again. This time, when a message was sent from Earth to the Pluto probe, the counter showed the time, 0.00 seconds. The connection was instantaneous. Lines blazed to life across the diagram, a web of real-time links connecting every human asset in the star system. This is our quantum communication array, Era said softly. It is how we talk. There is no lag, no delay. Information is simply shared anywhere the network exists. Admiral Kaver felt the air leave the room. His science officer, behind him, let out a small, shocked sound, her skin flashing to a stark, surprised yellow. Subspace relays, the Empire's method for faster-than-light communication, had a built-in propagation delay. It could take days for a message to cross the Empire. This was instantaneous. A technology the Empire's greatest minds considered a theoretical fantasy was presented by these humans as a simple, foundational tool. The humans looked at him, their expressions still polite, waiting for his reaction. There was no boasting in their faces, only a quiet expectation, as if they had shown him a well-made wheel dot in that moment. The solid ground of Kaver's understanding cracked. He had come to offer them fire. They had just shown him they could already whisper across the stars. The script was gone. He was not facing a primitive species eager for gifts. He was facing something entirely new, and he had no idea what came next.